No, I mean, what? I think we're good.
Okay, cool.
Just give me just a minute, just so I can throw out the link everywhere.
No, I mean, what? I think we're good.
Okay, cool.
Alrighty. All right, perfect. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. We'll wait a few more minutes for everybody to join us. First, we want to thank our special guest here, Shahbaz, for joining us. So Shahbaz, we'll get started in a couple of minutes. Just gonna wait for a few more viewers to join, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good. Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
All right, perfect. I think we're ready to go. Well, firstly, Shahbaz, thanks for joining us, man. We really appreciate it. And again, Ramadan Kareem to you and your family.
You as well.
So it's our first time kind of talking, but for those of you who are maybe not be familiar with exactly what you do, can you kind of give us a background about, what your daily job is with the Timberwolves and the Lynx?
I think, Shahbaz, didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think before you say more about what you do, I think people should find out more about who you are, right? So like where you grew up. You work for the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Minnesota Lynx, but did you like grow up in Minnesota? Like what's kind of like a little background of your story?
Yeah. So yes, I grew up in Roseville, Minnesota. Went to middle school and high school in Roseville. And I have one older brother who, mashallah, he's pretty successful in his career. He owns some restaurants in Minneapolis, including in Dinkytown. So Frank and Andrea's in Dinkytown is one of his restaurants, but by trade he's a electrical engineer and he manages an engineering firm. And so my parents always wanted me to kind of follow in his footsteps initially. And I got started at the University of St. Thomas as an electrical engineer, and I was huge into basketball, so I tried to play as well. And I realized I just wasn't there wasn't a long-term career for me in the NBA, and I was fine at engineering, but it wasn't something I was passionate about. So I had a difficult conversation with my parents, and I had the blessing of my brother who told me to chase something I was passionate about too. So he helped. And I had a conversation and I switched over to the U of M, didn't really know what I was going to do. And I saw an internship posting at the Timberwolves and Lynx, what was called a social media associate. So like a full-time intern back in 2011 and 2012. And I applied not having really any experience or understanding. And I didn't end up getting it. I didn't get it the next year either. And then my third year at the U of M, I switched to a communications major, and I tried to get as much experience as I could in social media. So everything from the Raptor Center at the University of Minnesota, which is like a rehabilitating wildlife center, to ad agencies in town where I was doing social media for like Popeyes restaurants, even though I had never ate Popeyes because it's not allowed for the most part. To just about everything in between, the graduate women in science on campus. I helped out. I ended up with 6 concurrent internships, and then I again applied to the Timberwolves my junior year, and I sent them the hiring manager a note on email just saying, hey, I did all this for a chance at this job. I'd really appreciate it if you take a look at my resume. And alhamdulillah, they took a look and I got hired, and that was kind of the start of my career.
Cool. Perfect. So then we'll skip my question because this gives a good background. You then went to the Sacramento Kings, if I'm right? That was technically your first kick, right?
So actually after the Timberwolves position, I went to Chicago for a social media agency, and they had everyone from athletes to different celebrities, and I was controlling their social media accounts for like their sponsored items. So Eli Manning, Shane Battier, Paula Abdul, Flo Rida, like a weird assortment of people. And I didn't like it. It was my first job out of the Timberwolves and out of college, full-time salaried. And 2 months in, I quit my job. I just didn't like it at all. And I took a huge risk. I didn't really have any money in my bank account. And I had to kind of go back to my mom and tell her that she was right. And it was a scary point for me just because, I gave up this potentially stable job in pursuing an engineering major for social media. I had left at the time. Social media wasn't really a reputable career or one that people knew was going to, kind of take off. It was at the onset of things. This is back in 2014, 15. And then I ended up quitting my first job 2 months in and, had very little in my bank account, moved back home. And from there, I messaged everyone that I kind of got to know when I was an intern at the Timberwolves. So I flew myself out to the NBA Summer League when I was an intern, and I networked, wrote my name down on a napkin and handed it out to people that did what I wanted to do in the NBA at other teams at like networking events. And it was, I remember because I booked my ticket and it was Ramadan and it's Las Vegas. So it's like 110 degrees, and I would walk to the arena in I only had one pair of like dress pants, and I walked every day in those. They were super nasty. And went to these league networking events for like the 3 days because that's what I could afford in the dingy motel I was in. And it turns out, when I ended up quitting this job, like 2 months into my salary career, I messaged all those people that I met then on LinkedIn. And then, as you alluded to, the Sacramento Kings got back to me, and pretty much 3 weeks from quitting my job, I was driving from Minneapolis to Sacramento to start working over there as their lead day-to-day social media and website creator.
Nice. That's awesome. So you jump there, and before we get to where you are right now, what's been your experience as somebody who is Muslim, a part of the NBA family, I would say? What's your experience with it?
Yeah, just overall as a professional, you're referring to?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been fortunate, alhamdulillah, to have very understanding managers and leadership in the organizations I've been in between the Timberwolves and the Lynx and the Kings, where it never interfered, me doing anything for work. It was never an interference in me as being a Muslim, right? And there were things, where Ramadan, for example, right? Like I changed my schedule around sometimes, just after Fajr, I'll continue working and I'll maybe leave work a little bit earlier. And that was never really an issue. And even more so than that, a lot of people in the NBA took interest at the organizations I was at, and very caring, very understanding, gave us Eid off. They understand the priority of Jummah and all of that stuff. So I've been fortunate, I've been blessed to have understanding organizations that I've been a part of, and it really hasn't, to anyone else and even to myself, like I'm just a regular professional, right? Like, of course I'm Muslim, and I always want to share and educate people as often as I can. And people have taken an interest in doing that, and it's never really been something I've even had to think about. Right. I've just always been myself.
That's awesome.
Cool. So I'm gonna refer back to Matham's question now. So like, what is kind of like your day in the life?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's kind of a cliche answer, but it's really the true answer in the sense that every day what I'm doing is completely different. So right now I'm sitting in a hotel in Los Angeles. We just flew here today from Minneapolis. We have a game against the Clippers tomorrow. Yesterday I was back home in Minneapolis because we were playing a game, against the Miami Heat. And, at 7 p.m., what I was doing is photographing the game, and I have a team of 4 people, including myself, that oversees the social media. And so I connect with them. We have a lot of different sponsor obligations. I have a strategy that, I want my team to go out and do the posting of. So, I'm in constant communication with them around that time. But then earlier in the day, from 9 to 5 before the game starts, I'm in a lot of meetings trying to figure out ways to help monetize our social media platforms. I'm working on a lot of different initiatives from a marketing aspect that are either upcoming or are, even recapping things that have happened in the past. So obviously there was the murder of Dante Wright recently. And so I was working with different departments within the organization because one of our players, Josh Okogie, wanted to auction all of the shirts that we were wearing pregame to benefit the family and support the Dante Wright Memorial Fund. So I was working, through what that would look like on social media, the different strategies that we would do in terms of getting that post out there into the world. I do all of the social media advertising as well, so all the paid Instagram, Facebook, all of that. So there's different things that I have on there. So on a game day versus a non-game day, it changes very dramatically because one day I might be working with, Fitbit or Beats by Dre or, something like that to work on an idea for sponsorship content that I feel good about us posting. Some days I might be, working on next year's jersey and, thinking about ideas and how we can do things, or I'll be working with a TikTok influencer. There's a Muslim influencer Soups videos that I've worked on when Anthony Edwards had a big dunk. And so I messaged him and we were in constant communication and got that out in 5 hours. Every day there's something different. It might be a jersey reveal, like I said, it might be a big trade. It might be on the Lynx side, we're getting ready for the season. There's really no 2 days that are the same, and that's kind of the thing that I like about it.
Nice.
Cool.
And of course, as you mentioned, we're all aware here locally we need justice for Dante, obviously. So that brings me to the next question. Kind of in this kind of like climate right now with what's happening in Minneapolis, kind of what do you feel is you take away from the players, like as far as speaking out and stuff? Like kind of how is it?
Yeah. Working in sports and especially in Minneapolis with everything that's gone on with Philando Castillo and George Floyd and now Dante Wright, it's very close to home. And, I've personally feel very strongly about, the making right the injustices in the world and especially in our own hometown. I used to live downtown. My wife and I did. And so we were in the protests. We had seen everything that was going on. We lived, a few miles from where the site of George Floyd happened. And so we were at the heart of it. And being in sports, over 80% of our players across the NBA and WNBA are Black. And so to not support to the fullest extent the, human rights and equal rights for everyone, but especially righting the injustices that are going on in terms of police brutality and everything else that's going on in the world. Like that's just a no-brainer. And I'm proud that the organization, they back that. One thing that went on this week, you guys asked about what I'm doing. So I had right after Dante Wright, I talked to the rest of our leadership team and I recommended, alongside the rest of my team, our team recommended that we don't post the next game that we play because it just doesn't seem right to try to entertain people about a basketball game when there are protests going downtown, around a life that's lost. Again, very soon, while the trial of Derek Chauvin's happening after the killing of George Floyd, like it just doesn't seem right at all. And so we did end up posting that day, and I was working through the strategy of what that meant and how we would say it and what we would do. But yeah, being around the players and seeing what they have to say, it's just an extension of the organization, right? Like that we follow their footsteps because they're living through it every day, just like the rest of us. But a lot of them, it hits close to their home because 80% of the league is Black, and the social justice is kind of led between the WNBA and the NBA. They've been very much at the forefront of it. So, yeah.
Cool.
Kind of changing the topic a little bit here. My next question is about, so as a working for a Minnesota sports team like the Timberwolves and the Lynx, how often do you meet with maybe other social media associates from, like, for example, the Twins or the Vikings or the Wild, and how often do you maybe like do like a collab with other Minnesota sports teams?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I pretty much know everyone that does what I do, not only in Minnesota, but across the NBA. I've always tried to pride myself on networking and getting to know the upcoming talent and just everyone else in the industry. And then when it comes to Minnesota specifically, and all of sports, actually, so there's certain conferences that happen in non-COVID times, like Twitter hosts a sports conference. So everyone at every professional sports league and collegiate sports goes to San Francisco to the Twitter headquarters, and we all meet up with each other for like 2 days. And there's a big conference that goes on. Facebook does the same thing. There's a lot of conferences that we go to. I had the chance to speak at South by Southwest a couple years back, and you meet a lot of different people there across not only sports, but a lot of different industries. But specific to Minnesota, it depends on what the collaboration is. We're in constant communication when our seasons are starting, or if there's something that we might need from another. So sometimes I might reach out to another colleague if, like, I can try to maybe get in touch with one of the Vikings players to maybe rock our new jersey when that comes out. And the same thing, the United had their new jerseys dropping, I want to say a month or two ago. So I was in contact with their social media manager, and he was letting me know if I get any pictures of our players wearing the jersey on the way into the arena, just send them over to him. So it happens kind of organically. It's not like, more often than not, it's not overly planned. It just kind of happens spur of the moment.
Nice. So as I'm sure you're aware, you're very lucky, alhamdulillah, to have such a unique job. And so I was always curious to ask this question. When's the time that you met somebody, an NBA star, and you were just starstruck? Like, who was the one that you were just like, I can't, like, it just took you a minute, or maybe not at the spot after, you're like, oh my gosh, like I just met him.
Yeah. It's crazy because, in growing up, I was the biggest Timberwolves fan. But when I end up getting this job, there's kind of a light switch per se that you kind of have to turn on when you're in a professional setting. And I'll tell you two stories. One, the first time that I was really starstruck was when I first got to meet KG, because he got traded back to the Timberwolves my first year as an intern. And like, that was crazy to even, I actually ended up meeting him when I was younger, because I went down to half court when I was like 8 years old, and he signed a basketball for me. And, my dad and I grew up watching him. My dad and I would go crazy watching him, but like working next to him and seeing him, like, that was crazy. And then when I went to the All-Star game, when I was an intern, I was doing social media, but somebody else in the department had asked if I could help interview players at the All-Star game. And, for people that might not be in the industry, you might not know, but at All-Star games, there's essentially like hundreds of reporters around every player asking different questions from all around the world, like literally every reporter from everywhere is there. So it's very intimidating as is. And then you take into account, like, I'm this 19-year-old kid. It's my first few months on this job. I'm at the All-Star game and I'm supposed to just be videotaping, for social media. And I get asked to ask someone a question. And my department colleague asked me to ask Steph Curry a question about like Andrew Wiggins and Zach LaVine. And, Steph Curry's there because he's an all-star. He's not there to answer questions about other players, but a lot of guys just get asked those kind of questions because it's the all-star game. That's the only time, reporters can really ask that stuff. So my heart was beating so fast. I thought I was about to faint. But he actually gave a great answer. And after that, it kind of, for the rest of my career ever since, like I've never really got into that situation where I've been like starstruck or super nervous, because seeing how he responded, I think really calmed me down. And then getting to know these guys over, I've been in the NBA now for 7 going on 8 years. They're bigger than life on the screen, it looks like sometimes, but then when they're regular people, right? They're human beings with great athletic ability, but they go through the same stuff that we go through. I've never had anyone that's been, bad or mean. Like, they're just regular people. And so my wife sometimes, she'll joke, like, when we had Derrick Rose on the team, she was like a huge Derrick Rose fan, and we had like an employee holiday party, and she was like super scared to ask him a question or like talk to him. But I haven't got into that situation since, just because, I traveling with the team and being around them, you get to know them a little bit, and they're regular guys.
Yeah.
That's cool. So who is, if you could, like for the day, like just go to Valley Fair here in Minnesota, just go to Valley Fair for the day, which 2 Timberwolves players would you take with you?
Oh man, that's a good question. I think Anthony Edwards is hilarious. You probably see all of the clips that he's in, but like, he's one of those people that's funny without trying to be funny. So I would probably choose Ant, and man, secondly, there's so many good. I'd probably take Cat. Cat's a low-key funny dude too. Yeah, or Malik Beasley. Malik Beasley is a funny dude too. It's a tie. Everyone, you can't go wrong with anybody on a team. Everyone's got their own advantages to it. But I would say I would be crying from laughing if I went to help. That might be an idea. I might pitch that now. You guys might have spurred an idea.
I actually got a question here.
Oh, okay.
That's sent to me. How do you balance your family life with your professional career?
That's a great question. I'm not gonna lie to you, like working in sports, although, alhamdulillah, I value my job a lot, especially early on in my career. There was not a lot of balance. You work 82 games a year, and when I was in Sacramento, I was traveling to every single game for all of the years that I was there. I was working every game, and then in the off season, I would go to players' hometowns or home countries. And there's obviously the draft. You're planning all this different stuff, and a lot of people have the perception, like, if you work in social media, it's like posting on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. But like 5% of my job back is that, and a lot of it is planning. A lot of it is writing, thinking about future ideas, marketing, sponsorships, photography, graphic design. Like, there's so many different aspects to it. And so, my father-in-law, when I was in Sacramento, I remember this distinctly because one time I was at a family gathering and a press release came out because the Kings had signed a new player. And I was sitting on, Thanksgiving, I think it was. And my father-in-law had asked me, like, is it always going to be like this? Is this kind of your life in your job? And to an extent, that's kind of right. Working in social media and working in sports, you're on a lot of the time in terms of being online. But since that time, and as I've continued to grow in my career and move more into managerial role and now overseeing the social media team, I try to make sure everyone's mental health and time with their family is valued. So it's gotten a lot better now. But it's hard for sure. Like, I've been traveling the whole second half of the year. My wife is back home, starting today I'm going to be gone for the next week. So she's going to have to wake up for, Sari and Sur by herself. I'm going to be 2 hours on a different time zone. So I'm going to have to do that over here. I'm not going to get to see my parents or family for at least a week, probably more, because the season, there's games every other day. So there's a delicate balance, but I try to call, my parents every day. I try to keep in touch. I call my wife all the time. And now that I've worked in it for 7 or 8 years, they kind of understand. And I try to take ample time for myself, when we don't have games, and just kind of decompress, take some time, hang out with family or friends, and enjoy that way. Because although I have a cool job, your life should never be all work. And that's something I wish that I, realized earlier in my career, where, I shouldn't have been prioritizing some of that stuff.
Yeah. And again, we're going to let you go in a few minutes. I know you must be tired, and you just broke your fast. So I'll go out one more question, and then Monty can finish it off. But I just wanted to put some light also on the Minnesota Lynx. What is the difference in the cultures that you feel like when you're surrounded by them and when you're surrounded by the T-Wolves? Like, what do you feel as a person that's working with both of them? Like, this is kind of like right away I can feel the difference.
Yeah. That's a really, really good question. So we're all under one organization, and in terms of like working with the players, the Lynx, just because of the growth of the game, they're a lot more open to, pretty much any and every idea. And that's not to say that the Wolves aren't. It just, there's historically been a lot more spotlight, and it's changing, and it should be changing, on the NBA, and there's a lot more media attention, and there's a lot more, agents involved when it comes to the NBA, and like a lot of players are being told what they can and can't do. And on the WNBA, like, they are literally like I said, I've never dealt with any bad players, but they are literally the nicest people ever. They're like the Desi aunties. Like, you will never hear. They're so nice, the WNBA players. And again, the NBA players are too, but like, they're open to any and every idea. And from a basketball standpoint, I've always advocated for the WNBA to the same level as the NBA, and especially the Lynx, because they're the Minnesota's most winningest franchise, and the basketball that they play is great. And a lot of times people don't understand, but like KG, a lot of NBA greats and current Timberwolves players and NBA players in general, they take certain aspects from the women's game in terms of plays, in terms of nuances to the game, and they bring that into the NBA side. Casual fans, I'm sure you guys all see the commentary sometimes on Bleacher Report and this and that, and it's frustrating to see, just because the people who actually play the game respect it, but there's a lot of work to be done for the up and coming generation, frankly, to respect women in sports the same way that NBA players are respected. But to answer your question, yeah, I think it's just like their personalities, they're just so vibrant and open.
Yeah. Monty, you got?
Yes, I have a question. My last question. So I know it broke in the news pretty recently, but Alex Rodriguez and a group of investors are buying the Timberwolves. So what is your take on that situation?
So nothing official has kind of taken place, so I'm not necessarily at liberty to really speak on it outside of, I know they have a intent to buy the organization, and that's kind of the deliberations that are happening right now. But I'm sure you see like Cat posting and some of the other players. It's something to be excited about and keep an eye on, but it hasn't necessarily officially broken yet. So Yeah, don't have a lot for you there.
Ant's reaction was the best. His was a great reaction.
Yeah, Bleacher Report and a lot of other places picked that up. Do you guys have any other questions?
No, man. I think otherwise we kind of feel like you got to get going. I promise I'm not going to take too much of your time. But again, I just want to thank everybody for joining us, but thank our special guest Shahbaz for coming on, man. It means a lot. This was mostly for the kids, really. Because alhamdulillah, you're really blessed. You do have a unique job, and we're happy to see we have a Muslim brother that has a job like this. So we're proud of you. I know we haven't gotten to meet before, but hopefully this can lead to other things. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and just take us off live, and we'll see you guys all next week.
Before we take us off live, Shahbaz, I wanted to bless you real quick. So I know you said that at the beginning that, you did a little bit of social media for Popeyes, or you worked with that industry a little bit. So
Eden Prairie, right?
Eden Prairie, there's a whole lot of Popeyes, yeah.
I want to say like 3 or 4 days ago, my wife and I went there because we had heard about that. Those chicken sandwiches were fire. They were so good.
They're so good.
You got to go to New York Gyro, bro. Have you been to New York Gyro yet?
Yeah, that's my my walima was that they catered my walima. So their chicken tikka rice plate, bro, I could eat it every day, every single day.
That's big, yeah, 100%.
And yeah, I would just say for you guys and everyone listening, always feel free to reach out and let me know if you guys have any questions. Sometimes it takes me a little bit, as I think you guys can both attest to maybe get back, just because of my schedule. And I'm not gonna lie, like I get a lot of random, like my message request folder is crazy because like I get people. I have a very common name, so I think that doesn't help. And then on top of that, like people ask crazy things sometimes, like, can I meet this player? Can you get me these tickets? And so like a lot of times I don't end up looking. I can't look at everything, but shoot me a message, and if there's something that I can help with, I'll of course always inshallah try to help.